Hello, and welcome to the Illinois Bystander Intervention Training. My name is Asia Johnson, and I am the Human Resource Business Partner for the Chicago region here at LAZ Parking. Managers and supervisors must receive a minimum of 2 hours of sexual harassment prevention training each year, and all other employees receive 1 hour. In addition to the sexual harassment prevention training, all employees must receive 1 hour of bystander intervention training each year, starting with 2023. This training will cover 4 questions. Number 1, what is sexual harassment? Number 2, what is bystander intervention? Number 3, when should you intervene? And number 4, how can you intervene in a safe, productive, and active way? As I take you on this journey of learning bystander intervention, I want you to know to be on the lookout for surprise questions. Although I say surprise questions, please know that the questions will all be related to the information that you are learning about. Now the learning will begin, and we'll start with, what is sexual harassment? As we take a look at this slide, we will learn the definition of what is sexual harassment. I will also read 4 examples of conduct that would classify as harassment. So again, what is sexual harassment? Under the Chicago Human Rights Ordinance, sexual harassment means any unwelcome sexual advances or unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature, or request for sexual favors, or any conduct of a sexual nature when, number 1, submission to such conduct is made either explicitly or implicitly, a term or condition of an individual's employment. Number 2, submission to or rejection of such conduct by an individual is used as the basis for any employment decision affecting the individual. And number 3, such conduct has the purpose or effect of substantially interfering with an individual's work performance or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. Sexual misconduct, which means any behavior of a sexual nature, which also involves coercion, abuse of authority, or misuse of an individual's employment position. Harassment training at the end of 2022, this should seem a bit familiar. Types of unlawful sexual harassment. Quid pro quo sexual harassment. You do something for me, and I'll do something for you. This means that a manager or a supervisor may not tell an employee that in order to receive a promotion, raise, preferred assignment, or other type of job benefit, or to avoid something negative like discipline or an unpleasant assignment, the employer must do something sexual in return. Hostile work environment sexual harassment. The air at work is full of sexual references and it is impacting me. A hostile work environment may occur when unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, or any conduct of a sexual nature has the purpose or effect of substantially interfering with an individual's work performance or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive working environment. Pro quo scenarios to run by you. Number 1, requesting sexual favors for hiring. Laura goes to a job interview where the interviewer begins to ask her personal questions which are not related to the job description. It makes her feel uncomfortable. The interviewer comes out from behind of their desk and sits on the edge of her chair, puts their hand on her shoulder and says that if she gets this job, she will have to spend a lot of time together in a sexual, suggestive way. Number 2, threatening to terminate someone if sexual favor stops. In quid pro quo, sexual harassment, the two people, one supervisor and the employee, are in a consensual sexual relationship. The supervisor feels that the employee is losing interest in the relationship and threatens to fire them if they stop having intimate relationships. Number 3, promising a raise for sexual favors. This type of quid pro quo harassment is more common than we think. For instance, Michelle is working in the office, and her supervisor has made his interest in her very clear, and she has consistently shut him down. However, he offers a promotion if she agrees to go out with him or get intimate because her supervisor thinks he is sure that they will hit it off. Number 4, expecting sexual favors for benefits. Kenny's boss has bought tickets to the company's yearly getaway and suggests she can pay him back later, but it must be a sexual favor. This scenario could include many other benefits like giving them a more favorable assignment or a company car. Number 5, Tammy has recently started working as a personal assistant to the managing director, Brett. Near the end of her probation period, Brett asks Tammy out for a drink after work. He then tells her that if she wants a permanent position with the company, she needs to have sex with him. Tammy refuses, but knows that if she wants to stay employed at the firm, she must comply with Brett's demand. She reports Brett's inappropriate request to the firm's human resources department. Because this constitutes quid pro quo, the employer can be liable even if it did not have an opportunity to stop the conduct. Number 6, Tom, a supervisor, begins to develop feelings for his subordinate, Carolyn. Tom suggests a relationship with Carolyn and promises work benefits such as a window office, bonuses, and promotions. Carolyn isn't interested in pursuing a relationship with Tom. Still, she worries that her chances of getting a promotion will end if she refuses to reciprocate her superior's feelings. This is also quid pro quo, sexual harassment. It's one of the two main types of sexual harassment, which involves an employer asking for unwanted favors from a subordinate as a condition for a promotion or another job benefit. Everyone in the workplace should know that quid pro quo, sexual harassment, is unlawful and they should report it immediately. We will now learn about hostile work environment, sexual harassment, using examples. Please be advised that there are more examples to consider, but I wanted to touch on more of the common ones. With that being said, the sexual harassment is one of the most common abusive behaviors in the workplace. In most cases, women are the victims, but men can be victims as well. The most common abusive behaviors include the following: sharing sexual photos, including pornography, posting sexual posters, sexual comments, jokes, or questions, inappropriate sexual touching, inappropriate sexual gestures, invading personal space in a sexual way, promotion or pay raise obstacles, termination. Having said that, an employee may reasonably feel sexually abused if another person at the workplace comments on the look of his or her body parts, makes any kind of sexual jokes, or calls her or him any names in a sexual way. The next slide will give us a couple of examples regarding hostile workplace sexual harassment. A team of unruly employees at work often makes crude or inappropriate statements and jokes that other employees can overhear in the same department. Other employees feel uncomfortable and shaken by the behavior and comments, especially when their banter becomes quite graphic or absolutely inappropriate. This is an example of a hostile working environment. Hilaria works at a clothing factory in San Francisco. Bill, her supervisor, frequently attempts to touch her under pretext. For instance, last week he tried to touch the upper area of her chest under the guise that he saw a bug. This week, he attempted to hold her waist. Hilaria is uncomfortable with his actions, and her factory colleagues mock her for their supervisor's special attention. The physical touching by Bill is an unwelcome, regular occurrence. The pervasiveness of the touching makes her want to stay home from work. This constitutes a hostile work environment. So as we just learned, there are two types of unlawful sexual harassment. What are they? That's right. Quid pro quo, sexual harassment. You do something for me and I'll do something for you. And then we also have hostile work environment, sexual harassment, which indicates the air at work is full of sexual references and it is impacting me. Gender identity can be defined as one's innermost concept of self as male, female, a blend of both, or neither. How individuals perceive themselves and what they call themselves. One's gender identity can be the same or different from their sex assigned at birth. A person can be the victim of sexual harassment regardless of the victim's gender identity or the perpetrator's gender identity. A person can be the victim of sexual harassment regardless of the victim's sexual orientation or the perpetrator's sexual orientation. So we are starting to see this on email signature lines more often so a person is aware of how one should be addressed while conversing. Here are some examples of gender pronouns. He, him, his, for a person who identifies as male. She, her, hers, for a person who identifies as female. They, them, their, for a person who identifies as a gender neutral. These pronouns can also refer to those who don't identify as either male or female. There are quite a few more, but the three above are some of the most common. Some individuals even use mixed pronouns, such as he and they. Now, the next slide will be a brief video on pronouns. So to make sure I still have your attention, here is a question. What are pronouns used for? That's right. How individuals perceive themselves and what they call themselves. So what are examples of inappropriate conduct? Sexual harassment includes unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature, sexual advances, and requests for sexual favors. You can see some examples in the boxes. Pressure for sexual favors or to go out on a date. Deliberate touching, leaning over, or cornering another person. Sexual looks or gestures or whistling at someone. Sending letters, telephone calls, emails, texts, or other materials of a sexual nature. Sexual teasing, jokes, remarks, or questions. Referring to another as a girl, hunk, doll, babe, honey, tootsie. Actual or attempted rape or sexual assault. A few more examples of conduct that may constitute sexual harassment can include turning work discussions to a sexual topic, asking about sexual fantasies, preferences, or history, kissing sound, howling, smacking lips, telling lies or spreading rumors about a person's sex life, massaging neck, shoulders, etc., and touching another employee such as their clothing, hair, or body, as well as sexual comments about a person's clothing, body, or looks. I'll give you a moment to think about other examples. Do you have any other examples to share? If so, write it down so we can address them after the presentation. Thank you for taking the time out to jot down some examples that you might want to discuss after the presentation. We will continue on with the presentation with the next slide. Now we move on to the second question out of the four. What is bystander intervention? So what is bystander intervention in sexual harassment? Bystander intervention involves safe and positive actions that may be carried out by a person or a group of people to prevent harm or intervene where there is a risk or perceived risk of sexual harassment to another. So based on reading this or hearing this information, what comes to mind? Let's take a moment and think about it. Now that I've given you a moment, let's move forward to find out what bystander intervention in sexual harassment actually is. Bystander intervention includes recognizing situations of potential sexual harassment, understanding institutional structures and cultural conditions that facilitate sexual harassment, overcoming barriers to intervening, identifying safe and effective intervention options, taking action to intervene. So again, take a moment and think about what else bystander intervention includes. Bystander intervention involves recognizing a potentially harmful situation or interaction and choosing to respond in a way that could positively influence the outcome. What is a bystander? A bystander is someone who observes some incident but chooses not to get involved. What is the bystander effect? The bystander effect occurs when the presence of others discourages intervening in an emergency situation against a person bullied or during an assault or other crime. For our purposes today, during an incident of sexual harassment. The greater the number of bystanders, the less likely it is for any one of them to provide any help to a person in distress. So after reading or hearing this information, what's one thing you may have learned out of this passage? As you think about it, the one thing I learned was that the greater number of bystanders, the less likely it is for one of them to provide help to a person in distress. Why do you think that is? Well, I believe that it's possible that everyone is thinking that the other will say something, or people may not want to get involved in certain situations, which in return causes that bystander effect.
If a stranger needed help, how long would it take you to offer them a hand? According to psychology, the answer to that question may depend less on who you are as a person and more on how many people are with you at the time. In a strange paradox of human nature, the more people there are in a group, the less likely anyone is to offer help. It's called the bystander effect, and it may be a roadblock that's keeping you from showing empathy. When someone is in need, people in large groups tend to feel that they don't need to do anything because someone else will take care of it. This is known as the diffusion of responsibility. The end result is nobody does anything. And if you don't believe me, I'll show you. We started with a large group of 10 people and told them they were here today to see a product demonstration. So we're just basically looking for emotional reactions to certain products. We're not quite ready to go yet. So as you can see, you have these surveys. Go ahead, start filling them out. Take all the time you need with them. I am going to go get the product and just kind of start throwing it together, and then we're going to begin. Sound good, everyone? Cool, thanks. Here's the thing, though. Everybody but one of these people wasn't in on it. We gave her a 10-minute window where she could offer to help. Let's see if she comes to my rescue. We repeated this a few more times with varying results. Come on. That didn't sound good. Next, we tried it with a group of 5. Oh, jeez. So far, it's not looking good for people in general. Are we just plain unhelpful, or is there something to the bystander effect? To find out, Let's see how helpful people are when they're all by themselves. The results? With our group of 10 people, it took our participants an average of 8 minutes and 1 second before they lent a hand. Excuse me.
Can I help? I just feel bad.
Participants in our groups of 5 were a little quicker, saving me from the tent with an average time of 7 minutes and 25 seconds. I'm okay.
Do you need help?
Do you want to give me a hand?
Yeah.
That'd be great, thank you.
What can I do?
But when our participants were by themselves, that is when they really shined. Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. On average, they offered to step in just 3 minutes and 19 seconds. You were the fastest by a country mile. I have set this thing up by myself 7 times today.
That makes me sad.
You took a total of 12 seconds. Why do you think you're so quick to do it?
I like to help in any way that I can.
That's the funny thing about the bystander effect. You would think that a group with more people would mean there's a higher chance someone would do something. But people in a group are actually less likely to help.
I knew I should have just stood up and done it, but then a big part of me wanted to see what these people would do, and I was just kind of like, are any of them going to help?
At first, I was a little shy to jump in and help, but then after a while, I'm just going to jump in and help.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Sorry it took 8 minutes.
When it's just the two of us in a space, there's like a bond that's created. It's like, well, I'm not going to let you struggle on your own. And I think if there is a group of people, it's way more acceptable for me to be doing that.
It's the diffusion of responsibility.
I think that's totally true.
If something is saying jump in and offer to help, just follow that intuition. Even if no one else is saying anything, just, hey, if you can be a part of helping someone, instead of just watching them struggle, or even take out your cell phone and like tape it or something like that, which is the worst. Just offer some help.
So, now that you know about the bystander effect, ask yourself, how often do you feel like you should help someone but don't because you think somebody else will do it? Maybe next time, you will be that somebody. So pancake.
The bystander effect. As you can see on this slide, these are some of the things that a person may say. I'm too busy right now. I'm sure someone else already called 911. It's not my business. I don't want to get involved. Well, the video that you just watched, although not pertaining to sexual harassment, still shows that the bystander effect happens in every situation. A bystander can be witness to something as simple as a person struggling to put up a tent to a more serious allegation of sexual harassment. And unfortunately, the bystander effect is still present in all incidents. The next slide will allow you to determine how to recognize if you are in fact being a bystander. So how do I know if I'm being a bystander? How would I know when I should intervene? Those are all 2 questions that come to your mind as they've come to a lot of people's minds in different situations. So I want you to 1, notice the event. Ask yourself, does this person seem uncomfortable? 2, I want you to recognize the situation as problematic. Ask yourself, what about the situation isn't right or doesn't sit well with you? Number 3, assume personal responsibility. Ask yourself, what are the potential barriers or consequences of intervening? And number 4, I want you to take action. Take action on the situation. So all 4 of these are questions that you have to ask yourself to determine if whether or not you are being a bystander or if whether or not you should intervene. Question number 3. When should I intervene? Of course, we keep talking about being a bystander, but there are several things that we must take into account before proceeding with our ability to help. The next few slides will answer this question for us. These are some important things to consider. 1. Identify the tone of the act. This will determine how you choose to respond. Number 2, consider your relationship to the offender. Are you friends, strangers, co-workers? What do you think they mean by identify the tone of the act? Do you think you would react differently if the offender was a person you knew versus a stranger or a co-worker? I'll give you a moment. Think it over. Well, here's another one of my pop-up questions. Again, what are important things to consider? Identify the tone of the act. Correct. And consider your relationship to the offender. Last but not least, question number 4. How can I intervene in a safe, productive, and active way? In the next slide, we will learn just that. Now we will learn about the 4 Ds. Delegate, delay, distract, and direct. The next slide will be a short video related to the 4 Ds. After watching the short video on the 4 Ds, we can dive into each one a little more. So delegate, responsibility. Notice, what does this look like? Ask for help from a third party. For example, your supervisor, manager, or myself, human resources. Ask people around you to get help while you monitor the situation. Sometimes we think of distractions as being a negative, but in this case, the 4 Ds of bystander training, distraction is a positive. So again, let's distract. Engage directly with the perpetrator and or the person being targeted. Talk about anything other than the harassment. Ask for the time. Ask for directions. Get in the way, but continue what you were doing. Oftentimes, we can look at a person's behavior of being direct as rude and or confrontational. That's why, before choosing to do this, assess your safety. Will direct confrontation make the situation better, or will it make it worse? Directly respond to the harasser. You can say things like, leave them alone. This is inappropriate. You're being disrespectful. Ask the person if they need help. Lastly, delay. Sometimes when a person has been able to successfully diffuse a situation, this is the one part that is forgotten. So make sure you check in with the victim afterwards. Ask if they're okay, if they need any support, and offer them resources. By now, I'm sure you all know what the 4Ds are, but I need to continue to express what the 4Ds stand for. And I need you to know that we all have the power to prevent sexual harassment with the 4Ds. So when you tell someone, get help, that's delegating. When you do something to break the moment, cough loudly, drop something, even be a pest, you're distracting. Tell the perpetrator to stop in a way that you feel comfortable doing so, you're being direct. And when you check in with the victim of sexual harassment to make sure they are okay and to offer any help or resources that you possibly can, you are delaying. But at all times, before you act, you must always assess your safety. I know you may think that this is getting repetitive, but I need you to be aware of what the 4Ds are. So what are the 4Ds? Delegate. Advise someone to get help if needed. Distract. Knocking over a cup of coffee or dropping something that will make a loud sound. Again, this will probably stop the interaction between the two individuals, the one that's feeling uncomfortable, of course. So then that way, you'll be able to do the next D on the list, which is direct. Point out the issue and why it was inappropriate. And then, of course, delay. Inform the person that you are there for support and that you will go with them to report what you saw. Another surprise question. I know. You guys got it from here. But again, who has the power to prevent sexual harassment with the 4Ds? Who is it? We all have the power. That's right. Every last one of us has the power to prevent sexual harassment using the 4Ds. Delegate. Get some help. Distract. Do something to break the moment. As I stated before, cough loudly. Drop something. Be a pest. Direct. Tell the perpetrator to stop in a way that you feel comfortable in doing so. Delay. Check in with the victim of the sexual harassment to make sure they are okay and to offer any help or resources that you can. But at all times, before you act, what must we do? Assess your safety. Great, let's practice. Let's practice with a few scenarios. I will give scenarios and I want you to think of how we can apply the 4Ds to each situation. I also want you to recognize if each situation allows you to apply the 4Ds. Let's get started. Scenario number 1. One morning, you walk into the office to find the new intern, Susan, sitting at her desk, looking uncomfortable as the manager, Bob, stands behind her with his hands on her shoulders, talking to her about the assignment he gave to her. What do you do? Let's take a moment and think about how would we delegate? How would we distract? How would we be direct? And how would we delay? So let's try to remember the 4Ds in the first scenario. So delegate. Tell Bob's supervisor or the human resources manager what's happening. Distract. Ask the intern, hey Susan, you like to go grab a cup of coffee? Direct. Tell the manager, hey Bob, give Susan some space. Delay. As soon as Bob walks away, go and ask Susan, you looked uncomfortable. Are you okay? I saw what happened. Do you need to talk to someone in human resources about this? I can go with you. Scenario number 2. In a meeting of your project group, your manager, Sarah, welcomes David, a new member to the team. Sarah jokingly tells David, it's going to be fun having a new young stud in the office, as she grabs hold of his hand with a smile. David looks clearly embarrassed. What do you do? So let's take a moment and think about how would we delegate? How would we distract? How would we direct? How would we delay? So here's a few more ideas. Delegate. Tell Sarah's supervisor or the human resources manager what happened. Distract. Knock over your cup of coffee. Do something to cause a commotion safely. Direct. Tell the Sarah, take it easy on the new guy. It's only his first day. Delay. After the meeting, tell David, I saw what just happened. Are you okay? We can report this, you know. I'll go with you if you need me to. Scenario number 3. Bill is excited to have recently been promoted into a position he previously had applied for, but was not selected. After a couple of weeks in the position, his boss, Steve, tells him, I really like you, Steve. You know I pushed for you to get this promotion. I think we're going to make a great team. He then leans over in Bill's ear and says, I expect that you will show your gratitude at the appropriate time, while squeezing Bill's bicep. Bill tells you about the encounter at lunch. What would you do? Now let's remember the 4Ds in this situation. And let's remember what does apply and what may not apply. So this one throws us for a bit of a loop. I'll give you some time to think about it before I reveal the 4Ds in this situation. Scenario number 3, other options. Delegate. Tell Steve's supervisor or the human resources manager what happened. Distract. This wouldn't be an option this time since the event is over. Direct. Tell Steve, Bill told me about how you welcomed him to the team. I don't think that was appropriate. Delay. Inform Bill that he should report the incident to Steve's boss or the human resources manager and offer to go with him if needed. Although I continue to talk to you about the 4Ds, we also have to assess the situation and decide which one of the 4Ds plays a part in the situation and respond accordingly. Next, you will watch another short video to wrap up our bystander training. That was the last and final video of this presentation. If you look at the current slide, I want you to know the importance of reporting sexual harassment to an employer. Report the incident to one or more of the following employer representatives: your supervisor, or any member of management you trust. Supervisors and members of management are responsible for knowing the employer's internal complaint investigation and resolution process. Supervisors can help effect immediate positive change. Human resources officers can work with management to investigate and resolve sexual harassment complaints. This option may be preferred if the perpetrator of the sexual harassment is a supervisor or manager. LAZ Parking HR team members for the Chicago region include myself, Asia Johnson, the Human Resource Business Partner, and Julia Sangster, our Human Resources Coordinator. We are both located at the Chicago Regional Office and would be more than happy to assist you at any given time. So as we continue to wrap up Illinois Bystander training, we have some additional resources for you. We would like for you to always be able to share your experiences with your HR department, questions and/or concerns. But here are a few other places that you can go to for help as well. Victims of sexual harassment can file complaints with the following agencies: the Chicago Commission on Human Relations, CCHR, the Illinois Department of Human Rights, IDHR, and the US EEOC, which stands for Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Again, I urge you to Contact your HR department first and foremost, but if you see fit, please use these resources as needed. Thank you. This slide here has further information about sexual harassment or the services and programs of the CCHR. You can contact them at the below information. Again, that is Chicago Commission on Human Relations, and they are located at 740 North Sedgwick Street, Suite 400, Chicago, Illinois, 60654. And you can also follow them on social media sites such as Twitter and Facebook. I'm going to allow some time for you to jot this information down, take a picture of it with your phone, whatever it is that you need to do in order to retain this information. Please do so now.
That's what I'm going to go ask.
Congratulations, you have just completed your Illinois Bystander training. This certificate of participation certifies that you have carefully read, listened, and reviewed the content and completed sexual harassment training pursuant to Chicago Human Rights Ordinance Municipal Code of Chicago 6-010-040. Please go back to the original form and make sure all your information has been entered. This is also where you will be able to write down the questions and/or concerns that you had throughout the presentation. Your HR department will be able to read and answer your questions and send them back to you. Please remember to hit submit so we can complete your form in order for you to receive your certificate of completion from your Human Resources Department. Once again, thank you for taking the class, and if you have questions or concerns, please feel free to write them down so that your Human Resources Department can respond as soon as possible. Thank you.